name is Dave Dixon, professor and chair of the Department of Pharmacotherapy and Outcomes Science at Virginia Commonwealth University School of Pharmacy. Globally speaking, the most meaningful evolution is that cardiovascular and kidney risk reduction is no longer treated as secondary to glucose lowering. And the role of GLP-1 based therapies in particular has become clear now that we have several clinical trials showing their added benefit in patients with chronic kidney disease, as well as patients that have heart failure and an ejection fraction of 40% or greater. We also have evidence that finerenone, the non-steroidal mineralocorticoid antagonist, has favorable benefits in patients with diabetes in terms of improving heart failure outcomes in those patients with an ejection fraction of 40% or greater. A couple of other minor updates that are important to note is that traditional risk factors such as hypertension and dyslipidemia remain critically important. And while the blood pressure goal is less than 130/80, there is now encouragement to achieve a systolic blood pressure below 120 in patients where that's feasible, based on a couple of recent trials that have demonstrated improved outcomes in patients with diabetes while having modest risk of adverse effects. So needless to say, there continues to be a lot of updates and changes in this particular area. So I think this is really important, and these conversations should really be reframed and focused on cardiovascular and kidney protection. So certainly A1C control is important, and we want to encourage that. We also want our patients to understand that that's not the end, and ultimately we want to reduce their risk of cardiovascular and kidney disease. So we have to think beyond glucose control, and so those conversations should really emphasize that increased risk of cardiovascular and kidney disease, and that we have to go beyond simple glucose control in order to reduce that risk. And thinking about it in a very patient-centered way in terms of explaining that change. Patients often think about diabetes medications as glucose or blood sugar lowering medications. Pharmacists can help patients understand that certain drug classes, such as the SGLT2 inhibitors, the GLP-1 based therapies, are different because not only do they improve glucose control, but they modify that long-term risk of cardiovascular and kidney disease. So needless to say, I think that this is an important area, and pharmacists have a lot to contribute in terms of helping communicate these key aspects to patients with diabetes.